My friends, जिस घड़ी का आपको इंतजार था वो घड़ी आ चुकी है. I've got Anupam Mittal back on Dostcast. Last time we did a podcast around Shark Tank. He came back again. We discussed Donald Trump, America, the American dream, the Indian dream, India की manufacturing, tough decision making, courage, and the strangeness of India's hospitality industry. बहुत मजाक भी हुआ, but I'm at this junction in my life, like I mentioned in the podcast, where I generally needed business advice. So what I did is, through my questions, I acted as a beacon for some of your most asked questions around startups, business, the future, building in India. And by the end, you realize that Anupam is not just some dude who got onto Shark Tank and became famous. There are years of business acumen, jiske baad things like Shark Tank look natural to you, but it's a lot of grinding in the dark. It's a lot of failure. It's a lot of decisions that go wrong. So sitting where I am at today, 28, I finally needed someone who could help me see through decisions, business, money, success, and what really matters in life. And I think this podcast we've been able to achieve that for me and hopefully by the end for you as well. The podcast with Anupam Mittal begins in 3, 2, 1.
Today, sure, OpenAI, let's just take the latest innovation, right? Artificial intelligence came out of America, came out of actually DeepMind and Google. And OpenAI just latched on to what these guys at Google had built and were first to market. But if you think about OpenAI as an LLM, when it first came out, it was magic. But how quickly did you find commoditized versions? Right? So the Chinese launched one, the French launched one, India's got one. So there are 7, 8, 10 models out there. Sure, OpenAI still has the highest usage, and that's usually the case. You see a power law when it comes to these things, when it comes to innovations. But the LLM itself is no longer a technology which is owned by a few. It is commoditized.
Correct.
Right? And I think that is a signal of the fact that we are moving towards a multipolar world where governments and countries are reacting to America's protectionism, saying if AI is going to be the next frontier, we cannot afford not to have our own models. Right? That's just an early indication. Defense, right? America was the protector of the world, but increasingly it's becoming clear. If you look at the Russia and Ukraine conflict, if you look at Hamas and you look at Israel and Palestine, that one can't really depend on America anymore. Right? The EU is right now getting bullied, or at least, if not bullied, is aligning with America's demands in many ways because of the defense protection that America offers EU. But this is bringing forth the reality that we have to take care of ourselves. So India is spending a lot more on defense.
Yeah. Have you met some of the defense guys down south?
Not really. I've met a few companies, but down south, now I've met a few startups trying to build something in defense.
I interviewed these guys at Triple S Defense. It's this small arms manufacturing company based out of Bangalore, and they have a small ammunition plant in Andhra Pradesh. And both GE guys, the co-founders. I was mind blown. पीछे दीवार पे खूबसूरत guns, and their guns have beaten American sniper rifles and a few others at major contests. So कमेंट्स के अंदर ये लिखा हुआ था कब ये लोग आईपीओ कर रहे हैं, कब आईपीओ कर रहे हैं, कब आईपीओ कर रहे हैं, कब आईपीओ कर रहे हैं. एंड आफ्टर भारत फोर्ज आई थिंक they're going to be the next great big
क्या
story.
नाम है भाई, मैं थोड़ा ट्रैक करता हूँ.
थोड़ा ट्रैक करिए. Triple S Defense.
Triple S Defense. Wow.
Yeah, so they have the M72 carbine and whatnot, and I didn't care so much about weapons till I went to their facility. Like barbed wire, German Shepherds, extra security, para SFs वगैरह, and the founders are just sitting there. Or once the podcast gets over, they all go to the shooting range and they try out all the guns. मैंने कहा ये किस तरह का gun culture emerge कर रहा है? What is this new situation that's emerging in India? And then they started telling me story after story after story about how now the DRDO, the HAL and the Defense Ministry has opened their doors. भाई साहब आओ, दबा के weapons बनाओ, हमें weapons ही weapons चाहिए. And how it used to be, a few years ago. And I thought, ये चल रहा है. This is happening under my nose. Because you you're an investor. You would assume you're going to invest in services and some other kind. You never think about
No,
defense.
I've evaluated companies in defense. haven't found a good one to invest in as yet.
Sure.
But we've evaluated at least 5 companies in defense.
What do you think that's
very
spectacular about this sector?
Well, I think it's just a macro tailwind, right? It's increasingly becoming clear that
What's a macro tailwind?
essentially it's a broader level tailwind as opposed to a specific innovation or a specific company.
Okay.
So the whole sector is seeing a tailwind because of India's need to have an indigenous defense sector. Right? We cannot, most of our defense is imported.
Right.
Right? More than 90% of our defense equipment is imported. And we cannot afford to continue spending so much. I don't know what our defense budget is, but it's certainly more than 100 billion, probably two. I want to say about between 100 and 200 billion dollar is my guess, right? Is our defense budget. That's a massive outflow of foreign reserves outside the country.
Right.
So and to do that trade, we have to continue buying dollars, right? Which then further strengthens the dollar and weakens our currency because we're selling our currency, buying dollars, to be able to pay for defense purchases in dollars, right? And we can't, given this current geopolitical situation, which is quite volatile, it's tough to depend on any supplier. What if America turns around or Russia turns around tomorrow and says they won't supply us? So we need our capabilities, indigenous capabilities, for 2 reasons. So we are not dependent on anybody else. If things were to change, we can manufacture our own. And 2, we are not dependent on foreign exchange to fund these purchases. So I think that's what's driving this sudden surge. And I think, a lot of companies are going to do very well. But tough game है, क्योंकि ये high capex game है. Second, ये government sales का game है. तो इसमें variables काफ़ी अलग-अलग type के हैं. So you need a killer team that not just knows how to build and innovate, but knows how to sell.
Right. You have your ears. Sorry, you were saying.
नहीं, और इसमें तीसरी चीज़ क्या है ना, आज हम देखिए, the example I'll use is, I don't remember the numbers now, but what cost NASA, I think the Mars probe.
Okay, I can look it up if you want.
It cost NASA when they had sent it out, some billions of dollars. I don't know exactly how many billions. Or Chandrayaan. Was it Chandrayaan? It cost us Chandrayaan cost us some $52 million or something like that. Right? And the same capability cost America several $billion. Of course, it was a different time, but India is known for its frugal engineering. Because necessity is the mother of a lot of invention. I won't say all invention, but certainly the mother of a lot of invention. And हमारे लिए, it is criminal to be spending that kind of money on foreign defense purchases when we can potentially build the same thing in India at 1/10 the price.
So I found the data. Mars orbiter mission Maven is 582 to 671 million USD. That's in 2013. Perseverance rover is the Mars rover, I think. ये आपका 2.7 से 2.9 billion USD. Mars sample return is 8.4 to 11 billion USD. So बाकी सारे ये NASA billions. India में Chandrayaan 1 is 386 crores, which is 43 to 89 million USD.
That's right.
Chandrayaan 2 is 978 crores, 118 million. Chandrayaan 3 is 615 crores, again 74 to 75 million USD, which they've reduced the cost.
So we are talking about 1/10 the cost. No, I'm sorry, 1/100 the cost.
Yep.
You're talking about not 1/10, 1/100 the cost. ठीक है, capabilities वगैरह में कुछ फ़र्क़ें होंगी. There must be some thing. But certainly, Elon Musk and SpaceX has proven, even while manufacturing in the US, that he's brought down cost by 1/10 or 1/20 just through first principles. So if not 1/100, I don't see why our cost should be more than 1/20th of, or in that order of magnitude, right? जो billions में लगते हैं, we are doing in hundreds of crores, which means our defense capabilities, if most of it became indigenous, would be 20x more than what it is today. Just given back of the envelope math,
Right.
if we are getting 20x per rupee by doing indigenous, that means we'll have 20x as much capability.
Sure. And we're ready to defend ourselves. We will have.
At 20x, the capability will be the number one defense spending country in the world.
We might need it given how things are heating up in the
That's
neighborhood at such a rapid rate. Let me ask you this, Anupam. You have your ears to the ground. You meet people from all stalks of life. You meet people who are higher up in business. आप लोग बिल्कुल साधारण व्यक्तियों से भी मिलते हो आप. So there is clearly a way in which you are able to evaluate the investability of a certain business. You understand industries in a macro. आपने बोला जैसे defense के बारे में कि high capex है ये सब है. This is someone who can be detached and do it. You know, sometimes people when they are investing, even as retail investors, they're born into stories, and they can't think straight, right? You mentioned the second industrial boom happened in America, right? And I think we skipped the industrial age in India largely, right? We went direct into services and agriculture. Do you think with this rise in defense exports, are we going to see maybe a micro industrial revolution happening in this era in India?
I think it's already happening. Yes, we get frustrated. Everybody will, when you say manufacturing, reality ban raha hai India mein. People will throw back a number at you and say, but look at the percentage as GDP.
Right.
That's not important. What's important is what was the percentage 3 years back. And what's important is what will it be 3 years from now or 5 years from now. See, manufacturing is a very important source of employment. A country that does not have, and a very important source of defense. Not defense manufacturing, but any manufacturing. I'll tell you why. In World War II, every factory in America, regardless of what they were manufacturing, was transformed to start manufacturing bombs and artillery and guns and tanks because they couldn't get enough.
Right.
Right. That's what helped America and Allies defeat Germany. If you did not have that manufacturing base, where would you get those the supplies when you needed them? Changing a manufacturing line to manufacture something else is not that hard, but you need the installed capacity. So manufacturing serves as a very important employment source. 2, as capacity for potential defense as well, if needed.
Sure.
Right? So that's a very strategic reason. What I'm seeing, so for example, मैंने, आपने कहा I have my ear to the ground, not always, लेकिन मैं लोगों से मिलता हूँ काफ़ी. तो पिछले बस 6 महीने में I have met 4-5 defense companies. And these are not the typical, when you think about defense founders, you think about Cloak and Dagger,
Yeah.
नाम कभी सुनते नहीं हो उनका, they operate in the shadows. No, these are IIT type of guys coming out and wanting to build a defense missile, laser guided precision systems that are much more powerful than today's defense systems, right?
Sure.
Drone guys who building drone systems and so on and so forth. So there is a real aspiration to build a defense company now in India. It's not something those guys in the shadows do.
Right.
So that's out in the open. On manufacturing in general, I'm seeing considerable evidence of that happening on the ground. Now, sure, I cannot, from a numbers standpoint, tell you that we've suddenly transformed our manufacturing economy, but let's look at Apple, right? it has become the biggest exporter from our country. Exporting mobile phones. I think they are exporting some $50 billion worth of phones from our country. Sure, now somebody will counter back and say, लेकिन वो सारे उसके सब असेंबली तो चाइना से आ रहे हैं. ठीक है, वो भी हो जाएगा, बट कहीं तो आपको शुरू करना है ना. So these are indicators that the ecosystem is falling into place. You take my friend Piyush Bansal and Scott. उनकी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग देख लो. He has put in place the largest glasses manufacturing facility in the world. I think the capacity is some 30-40 million pairs a year.
Sure.
Right. That's tremendous. You look at my other friend Aman, my good friend who's going public right now. Unki manufacturing bhi more than 70% is now happening in India. At one point, 100% of it was imported from China. Right. So these are stories close to me because these are इनके साथ उठना बैठना है मेरा. But I gave you Apple story as well, which is very real, and that number is massive.
Yeah, I would think that perhaps we are benefited from taking a hit on our reputation as a very hospitable country of great hotels.
Yeah.
आप किसी दुकान में जाओ, आप मोबाइल की दुकान में जाते हो, 20 दुकानदार हैं. आप बोलते हो इतने की ज़रूरत क्या है? You go to any other country, right? And it's like, oh, sorry, फलाना फलाना बंदा shift पे नहीं है. People get used to it. I think our services are so overmanned, and it's in people's potential is being wasted, right? आप होटल में जाओ.
अरे मैं आपको बेस्ट एग्जांपल देता हूँ. मैं जब यूएस से वापस आया ना, तो इंडिया में, और मैं शायद वेकेशन पे आया था, इंडिया में वो टाइम वो कोल्ड ड्रिंक डिस्पेंसर, उसको क्या बोलते हैं, फाउंटेन, शुरू हुआ था. तो उसका मतलब क्या होता है फाउंटेन का, कि आप, और मैं जा रहा था ट्रेन स्टेशन से मेरी नानी को मिलने, वो यूज्ड टू लिव इन डोंबिवली. तो मैं बहुत very frequently I used to go and meet her because she raised me for a few years when I was a little boy. तो I was very close to her. तो मैं जा रहा था वीटी स्टेशन पे गया मैं, तो वहाँ पे मुझे वो फाउंटेन दिखा. तो मैंने कहा
बटन दबा के पानी पीने वाला ना?
नहीं वाला, वो वाला नहीं, वो सॉफ्ट ड्रिंक वाला.
अरे इस पे
वेंडिंग मशीन, वेंडिंग मशीन, फाउंटेन नहीं, वेंडिंग मशीन पे ऐसे डालो. मैंने कहा अरे इंडिया में पहली बार मैंने देखा था, इंडिया बहुत अलग, इंडिया में वेंडिंग मशीन, क्या बात है. तो मैंने कुछ खुले निकाले, मैंने कहा इसमें डालें, ड्रिंक लेके निकलेंगे. तो वहाँ गया तो एक आदमी बैठा था. बोला सर, बोला भाई ड्रिंक चाहिए. तो इससे हाँ इतना लगेगा. तो ऐसे, लेकिन ये तो वेंडिंग मशीन है, मैं खुद ही करना ही नहीं. आप पैसे उसने दिए, स्टोरी इज नॉट ओवर. पैसे उसने लिए, चेंज दिए, दूसरे आदमी ने ग्लास लिया, ड्रिंक पोर किया और मुझे दिया. तो एक वेंडिंग मशीन के पीछे 2 आदमी लगे थे. राइट. तो वेंडिंग मशीन का कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं रहा ना. तो आई एम सेइंग एग्जैक्टली व्हाट यू सेड, राइट, जस्ट विद एन एग्जांपल.
So I wrote something on Instagram about the toilet greeter. There's I'm sure you've seen.
थाईलैंड में भी मिलते हैं,
है ना? मतलब ये क्या है, जहाँ पे भी बंदे खाली हैं, बहुत सारे हैं. It works like this. मैं बेरोजगार हूँ, मैंने नौकरी लगवाई बड़े शहर में आके, अब मैं तेरी भी लगवा दूंगा. And how do you invent growth and show progress? We gave 300 jobs. In what? What are you giving new jobs in? This guy is a toilet greeter. मैं literally देख रहा हूँ भाई, you're going to transact your business. You're either going to take a piss or a shit, right? Like you don't, at that point, you don't want to be greeted, yaar. You're like tired from the flight. Now this guy says, hello sir, how are you? अब आप मुँहने से पहले किसी से hello hi करो. And then it's worse because then he will go and now you have to stand in line for the, in Mumbai airport, there's no VIP service when you come down. Everyone's the same. So if you want to go...
और फिर उसकी आंखें ऐसी रहती है जब आप निकलते हो कि कुछ देना ही पड़ता है.
कुछ दे जा, मतलब भाई साहब, मतलब...
He guilts you into giving him money.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got someone with their pants down, literally, and now there is this whole transaction.
ये इसको extortion बोलते हैं. अभी ऐसे टाइम पे आपको देने ही भी पड़ते हैं पैसे. यहाँ तो चलो राइट नहीं है, लोग आपको बुरा लगता है तो आप दे देते हो. They guilt you into paying them.
Sure.
But
for taking a piss and handing you.
But यूरोप में, मिडिल ईस्ट में, जहाँ पे क्लब्स, नाइट क्लब्स, बार्स, रेस्टोरेंट्स होते हैं, वहाँ पे तो लोग बैठते हैं, एक्सटॉर्शन का रैकेट है. वहाँ पे आप $1 दो तब आप जा सकते हो अंदर,
हाँ.
और वो फिर आपको एक मिनट दे देंगे. वो अमेरिका में भी है सब नाइट क्लब्स में.
No, there are paid toilets here as well, and you can see the
नहीं
differences.
दीज आर इनसाइड द क्लब. अभी आप क्लब के अंदर हो
हाँ 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 हाँ.
तो आप कहाँ जाओगे? आपको जाना तो
True,
वहीं
true,
है.
true, true, true.
पूरी रात में आप 3 बार तो जाओगे ही.
Uh,
तो $2 जो भी लेते हैं वो $6 तो गए.
correct.
राइट. एक स्प्रे परफ्यूम का मिल जाता है या एक वो छेद वाली मिंट मिल जाती है.
But about this guy, what I find also fascinating is, it's when people want to go to the 2 number जाना है जब उनको. First, you have to address him with the eyes that I'm looking to go.
हाँ.
Now he will say, okay sir, you have this need, I will fulfill it. वो हर दरवाजे पे बैंग करते हुए जाएगा. अच्छा आइए सर, आइए संदास पे आइए भाई साहब. तो that my point on your point was that I think we have too many people in the services, too many people in hospitality. We can do with less. Indians can, if they do
फिर
it.
लोग क्या करेंगे भाई? इट टेक्स अ विलेज. इंडिया में 150 करोड़ लोग हैं.
No, if manufacturing is the future, then they should all be in factory jobs.
I think manufacturing is one of the things. I don't think India में we'll have. See, manufacturing में भी एक और चीज़ हो रही है. Manufacturing में automation बहुत हो रहा है. तो जहाँ पे 10 लोग लगते थे अभी एक ही आदमी लगेगा. Right? Manufacturing is no longer. मेरे डैड की फैक्ट्रीज हुआ करती थी. मैं जाता था जब बहुत छोटा था. तो वहाँ पर लेबर मतलब सब लेबर से चलता था. मैन पावर से चलता था. हैंडलूम्स थी. राइट. तो फिर पावर लूम्स आए. वहाँ पे 1/10 हो गया लेबर की रिक्वायरमेंट. अब आप देख रहे हो रोबोटिक्स वगैरह एंड
Sure.
यू नो ये सब से AI से तो और कम हो जाएगा. सो आई थिंक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग विल सर्टनली क्रिएट लॉट ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट बट इट्स नॉट गोइंग टू बी सफिशिएंट. तो हमको सर्विसेज एज अ कंट्री एज अ नेशन इज आवर स्ट्रेंथ. और वहाँ मुझे लगता है बहुत ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटी है बिकॉज इट इज़ नॉट ईजी. इट इज़ नॉट ईजी फॉर टेक्नोलॉजी to replace people in the services business. क्योंकि अगर आप मेडिकल टूरिज्म देख लेते हैं राइट इंडिया में भाई $5,000 में $5,000 भी ज़्यादा हो गया. 1-2 हज़ार डॉलर में स्टेंट लगता है. यूएस में $100,000 लगते हैं एक स्टेंट लगाने का. यहाँ पे 2-3 लाख रुपए में हो जाता है काम. राइट. तो यू आर टॉकिंग 50x.
Right.
यूरोप में भी यही हाल है. मिडल ईस्ट में तो डॉक्टर्स ही नहीं है ज़्यादा अच्छे. तो इंडिया हैज़ एन अमेजिंग अपॉर्चुनिटी टू क्रिएट इनक्रेडिबल एम्प्लॉयमेंट इन दिस इंडस्ट्री. Nobody wants to be greeted by a robot when you go for a bloody stent in your heart.
Yeah, you're going to be scared.
Right? You want empathy. So nurses provide empathy. आप केरला की इकोनॉमी देखो. A large part of it runs on a lot of them being nurses.
Yeah, it's the southern Karnataka and then Kerala. You have this huge medical like ecosystem जहाँ पे medical tourism ही है सिर्फ.
और यहाँ पर भी आप बॉम्बे में कहीं भी देखोगे इंडिया में, यू विल फाइंड अ लॉट ऑफ द नर्सेज आर फ्रॉम केरला. लॉट ऑफ देयर मनी फ्लोज बैक होम. तो वहाँ पर देयर इज अ मैसिव अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर एम्प्लॉयमेंट. द अदर वन टूरिज्म. अगर हम थोड़ी और सिविक सेंस डेवलप कर लें सो दैट पीपल फील सेफ और पीपल स्टार्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि भाई हमारी यू नो रोजी रोटी का सवाल है. जैसे कि सम प्लेसेस आप कश्मीर जाओगे. अब भी मैं आया कश्मीर.
Yeah, I saw your LinkedIn post. Yeah.
कश्मीर में लोग जानते हैं 50-60% of people are some way directly or indirectly affected by tourism.
Sure.
20 लाख टूरिस्ट जाया करते थे कश्मीर में. आफ्टर आर्टिकल 281 एंड कोविड दैट नंबर क्लाइम टू 2.5 crores. जो आदमी 5,000 रुपये कमा रहा था महीने के मुश्किल से वो 15-20 हज़ार कमाने लगा. जो 10,000 कमा रहा था वो 30-40 हज़ार कमाने. कश्मीर में अगर आप देखोगे आज द रोड्स, द इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, द प्रोग्रेस, द बिल्डिंग्स, इट इज़ लाइक अ रियल मतलब आपको लगेगा कि तरक्की हुई है. लेकिन ऑफ कोर्स ये पहलगाम का हो गया तो वापस वो 2.5 करोड़ has come down to 20-25 lakhs. बट वहाँ पर लोग जानते हैं टूरिज्म की अहमियत. तो वहाँ आप देखोगे they'll never mess around with tourists.
Of course. Same in Himachal Pradesh, same in
है
Uttarakhand.
ना.
Yeah.
तो ये अगर हम इंडिया भर में एक एक्सपीरियंस दे पाएँ लोगों को, where we take any violations against tourists very seriously.
Sure.
And people have fear of consequence. हमारा देश can create a parallel economy based on tourism only that is larger than most GDPs of most countries.
Sure.
Right? क्योंकि इतना कुछ देखने के लिए है और इतनी कल्चर और इतनी हिस्ट्री है और इतना एम्प्लॉयमेंट हो सकता है. Right? It's remarkable.
Yeah, like if you think about it, the world's digital entrepreneur is skipping India, skipping Thailand, heading directly to Bali. Why is that?
Bali is just every few years some place becomes hotspot. I think Thailand will always remain a great place because value for money is incredible. हम बाथरूम की बात कर रहे थे, यहाँ पर तो दरवाज़ा खोलता है थाईलैंड में, आप अपना काम शुरू करो, शुरू पीछे से आके कोई मसाज करना. पहले टाइम तो मैं जो कूदा हूँ ना, some guy just comes and grabs you from behind. But I think that's the kind of hospitality they have. है ना?
It's too much hospitality.
Yeah, but Thailand will always be great value for money. वहाँ पर थोड़ा ट्रबल हो गया था बीच में. Right, I think there was some unrest, civic unrest.
Sure, they were fighting for an ancient Hindu temple, Thailand and Cambodia, using elephant armies, which was spectacular to see.
मैंने देखा नहीं. I'd love to watch. Why is war so enticing? But anyway, so I think that led to a pivot to Bali, a little bit. But Thailand's economy runs on tourism. आज भी आप देखोगे, they get 10 times the size of the country, and compared to India, they get 10x the tourists that India gets. And let me remind you, India's tourists are not all coming for adventure and क्या कहते हैं, to visit the country, right? Many of them are come for business.
Sure.
So if you remove that, Thailand probably gets 20x the number of tourists. So I think there's a big opportunity there. I know the government is doing a lot, लेकिन काफ़ी कुछ हो सकता है, right? India needs to become this, because देखो आप हिमाचल तो डायरेक्टली पहुंचोगे नहीं, आप कश्मीर तो डायरेक्टली पहुंचोगे नहीं, आप जाओगे बॉम्बे के थ्रू, आप जाओगे दिल्ली के थ्रू, आप जाओगे कहीं भी बैंगलोर के थ्रू. तो the entire experience of coming to our country and leaving our country needs to be upped.
Sure.
And that is another massive employment generator. And then, yes, the services business, of course, food and beverage employs the highest number of people after construction in the country.
Now let's talk about your favorite, जिसको आपसे करोड़ों लोग पूछते हैं कि बिजनेस, पैसा, शोहरत, नाम कैसे बनाया जाए, right? I will ask you something else instead, along the same lines. You see, there are many internet gurus out there. A guy called Alex Hormozi, very, very famous right now.
Alex, sir?
Alex Hormozi. It's like the new age Gary Vee internet marketer, fantastic. There's something he often talks about, which is focus. And focus I'll direct it in the way that he says, do real business and real work for 5 years and then go make content, as opposed to, like, aaj mera business shuru hai. Like some guys now do it, like 70 days of building my AI startup till it gets to 1 million. You see these reels, right? Now, I ask you this specifically, Anupam, is because for years, I'm sure some of the traditional press must have covered you. But it's only around Shark Tank where your achievements have come to light, where it's been 3 or 4 or 5 years of this, where you've come into it. For years, you've also operated quietly in the shadows, running your business.
That's right.
Now, इस पॉडकास्ट को बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग देख रहे हैं अभी तक कि दुनिया भर की जियोपॉलिटिक्स की बातें कर रहे हैं. मेरे को धंधे के बारे में बताओ. Who thinks that personal brand, marketing, and creating content around your company is perhaps even more important than the company itself, right? What would you say to those guys? Because the appeal of glamour and being seen is so high nowadays.
This word, personal branding, is the biggest con being played on kids these days. I personally hate these words. Personal branding. I don't know what the fuck it means. क्या मतलब क्या है personal branding, right? In some way, everybody's a brand. There's 8 billion people. Each one is individual. Each one is different. They're different. And they're a brand. If you care enough to understand a person, you'll find something unique about everyone. But to try to create a brand around you as the starting point of building a company or a business is the most deceitful thing you are doing to yourself and to your investors. I think problem क्या है ना, most people don't admit it. But beyond money and power, people want fame. Fame is the most intoxicating of these three. Power, money, fame. Most people don't want to admit it, but everybody loves fame. Everybody wants fame. This personal branding theory, philosophy, or term is a great way to rationalize your hunger for fame and make you feel good and give you an excuse to pursue fame. Even after doing hours and years of personal branding, most people will never get anywhere. Right? Because brands, by the very definition of brands, or stars, by the very definition of stars, are one in a million. So you can spend your LinkedIn posts and you can do this. लेकिन घंटा कोई देख भी नहीं रहा है. मैंने कितनी बार सुना है. I meet people and they say, कैसा लगा आपको वो नया वर्जन? किस चीज़ का नया वर्जन? अरे हमारी we just launched this new version of our coffee.
2.0.
How would I know? तब मैंने पोस्ट किया ना. तो पीपल अस्यूम भाई तूने पोस्ट किया तो सबने देख लिया. उसकी जाके रील देखोगे ना तो उसमें देखेगी 10 लाइक्स, उसमें से 8 तो उसकी फैमिली है, 2 एम्प्लॉयज है जिन्होंने जबरदस्ती कर दी. राइट. टोटल व्यूज है 50. बट यू फील कि बिकॉज यू पुट इट आउट इन द वर्ल्ड, यू पोस्टेड इट, यू लाई टू योर सेल्फ सेइंग सबने देख लिया. किसी ने नहीं देखा है. You might as well be, posting it on your computer. It's as good as that. Right? But this is the lie that you're telling yourself and selling yourself because you are hungry for fame, not because you really believe that's the way to build your business. It is just an excuse you found. There is no replacement for grind. धंधा और नाम तभी बनता है. Every overnight success story is at least 20 years in the making. You find out about it overnight, that's why you feel इसने भाई overnight अपनी branding कर ली. लोगों को लगता है अरे शार्क टैंक पे आ गया तो मतलब पर्सनल ब्रांडिंग हो गई. अबे शार्क टैंक पे कैसे आया मैं? क्यों आया? शार्क टैंक ने तो ये देश के हजारों लोग को देख लिया.
Sure.
कितने लोगों को इवेल्युएट कर लिया. हर साल 8-10 आ जाते हैं और शार्क पे, टैंक पे शार्क. टिकते कितने हैं? कोई बात होगी तभी तो हम कर रहे हैं ईयर आफ्टर ईयर. राइट. कम से कम 50 शार्क आ चुके हैं शार्क टैंक पे अभी तक.
You've got staying power for sure.
Right. So my point is that people see the shallow side of things, right? Because it's convenient. Because they don't want to accept कि भाई बहुत मेहनत लगती है. क्योंकि if they start accepting that, then they are accepting that they may never get there.
Yeah, it's highlighting their own insufficiencies.
Right? Because they don't want to put in that effort or that work. Then that dream becomes too far to chase it. But if you tell yourself the story, ये तो मतलब ये 2-3 किया, 3 LinkedIn post किया, 4 Insta post किया, हम भी आ जाएंगे. Then it's makes you get up and you say, चलो ठीक है, then I can pursue it. So I think it's a bunch of lies. Yes, occasionally there are stories that deserve to be told, and that deserve to stand out. And there are some people who do a remarkable job at weaving storytelling into their brand in a way that ends up creating their personal brand. You don't start the other way around. I will create my personal brand
And then the
and
money
therefore
will
my business will happen. No. Then you focus on your personal brand, then become a creator like you, become a podcaster, become somebody who's passionate about creating and building content.
I was going to ask you then.
Then do just that, right? But the guy who can run a business and be a great content creator and be a celebrity, that's the exception. That's not the rule. Right? I got lucky. Or maybe I was, like growing up, for example, you spoke about Trump and his books. I was never fascinated with the guy. I never liked him because he sounded like a didn't sound very authentic to me. But I was very fascinated with, I was not even very fascinated by the Jack Welches of the world or whoever. Because they're always booted, suited, tie. I never fancied myself like that. मेरा एक अपना अंदाज था, मेरा एक अपना तरीका था चीज़ें करने की, and I was a little different, and that's why I was looked like until my 30s I had a ponytail. I used to be taking meetings with VCs with ponytails, and they used to look at me weird. But जो था. So I was fascinated with Richard Branson.
Losing My Virginity, the famous book.
Yeah. And I read a lot of his books. And I was fascinated with him because he did things his way. बड़ा impact किया धंधे में, great entrepreneur, but exciting stuff. Adventure sports guy, going up in
He traveled around the world in a fucking pod, puked in the pod many times, flew around the world many times.
He was taking hot air balloons to the edge of space and coming back. Almost never made it back many times.
Yeah, कितना risky rider था वो पर.
But life has to be edgy and exciting, and नहीं तो point क्या है यार, मेरे को तो समझ नहीं आता है तो. And to become a robot by dressing up exactly, following convention, business people are meant to be boring. मेरे हलक से नहीं उतरता था. In fact, I find being boring is the biggest crime in the 21st century. Right. So maybe because of those views and maybe because of the path I took, I was one of those exceptional people who ended up being an entrepreneur, TV host. एक मेरा show भी आ रहा है. I don't know, you must have been seeing ads, an OTT show with Tamanna and Diana called Partner. I'm in a couple of the episodes.
I see. I've been seeing the ads.
Yeah. So I'm in a couple of those episodes. I was lucky. I did a movie when I was much younger.
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah, I've
produced
done
it.
like 5-6 ads.
चेहरा भी ठीक दिया भगवान ने.
हाँ, मतलब ठीक तो मतलब है ही, but God gift है तो I think somewhere वो हो गया. But I don't know if you can fashion yourself on a path of personal branding, then business, then celebrity. It doesn't work.
Earlier you mentioned the power law, and it got me thinking that you must take decisions with. Sometimes you take decisions like that, snap decisions. Other times it could be very critical decisions like where to invest.
I make anywhere between 10 to 50 decisions a day.
Right.
These are
critical,
work related, important
work-related.
decisions.
So there is clearly एक bandwidth होती है. एक होता है कि when you feel rushed for something, you've got pressure. I recently watched that movie, Devil's Apprentice. जिसके अंदर Al Pacino और Keanu Reeves होते हैं. Al Pacino is the devil.
Yeah.
It's wonderful dialogue. He says pressure. Some people you squeeze, they focus. Others fold.
Yeah.
Can you summon your talent at will? Can you handle a deadline? Can you sleep at night? This word pressure, I've lately been feeling a lot of it. I've been feeling like there's too many decisions to take. Sometimes I'm either lacking information, other times I'm lacking conviction, other times there's just urgency. And at that point I'm like, how do I get, जैसे लोग फाउंडर्स पॉडकास्ट है इतने मेंटल मॉडल बनाते हैं कि ये जो सबसे बड़े महान एंटरप्रेन्योर है ये 20 मेंटल मॉडल फॉलो करके ऐसे डिसीजन लेते हैं. एंड आई थिंक डिसीजन मेकिंग इज प्रॉब्ली द मोस्ट की टू sustaining a lifelong practice of being at the apex position in your business. How do you take decisions?
तो यार मैं, it's a good point you've raised क्योंकि I believe that हम 15 साल पढ़ाई करते हैं और जो सबसे ज़रूरी स्किल्स है वो नहीं सिखाए जाते हैं. In fact, I want to do something about it. Primary amongst those are self-awareness, emotional management, decision-making. These are critical skills for success in life, and you're not taught that. Nobody teaches you this shit. The माँ बाप ने पैदा कर दिए, जाओ भाई समझ लो, सीख लो, संभाल लो, right? But पूरी जिंदगी लग जाती है. By the time, if you're some people do it sooner, some later, but सालों लग जाते हैं समझने यार how to make good decisions. I think decision making is easy. Good decision making consistently is hard. What do you want to do? Let's clarify the objective. You never want to shoot for, I will make good decisions all the time. That's impossible. If you aspire to that, you will never actually make decisions because you'll be too worried about making bad decisions. Right? So you'll be flipping things. I think what you want to aspire towards is develop into somebody who makes good decisions at least 2/3 of the time. So you want good judgment, which will come from experience and hopefully good instinct. And it'll come from your own learnings and frameworks that you develop on your own, not implement third-party frameworks. बहुत है बाहर, right? Some of them are valuable,
Sure.
right? And some of them apply to everyone. So, for example, the two-way door versus one-way door decisions, right? That is
Reversible decisions.
exactly. You don't need to think. अभी खाना क्या खाना है आज, उसमें you should only give it so much time. तुमने गलत डिसीजन भी ले लिया तो अगले मील में ठीक कर लो उसको, बड़ी बात नहीं है.
Right.
आज सुबह क्या पहनना है, इतना ही टाइम लगना चाहिए. Right. Completely, they are not reversible, but very low consequence decisions.
Sure.
Then there are reversible and no consequence decisions. वो तो यार you shouldn't think even a second. Right. The decisions that are irreversible and have high consequence. For example, having a child. You can't reverse that. Those require a lot of thinking and consideration.
Or where you live, perhaps? Who you marry?
No, actually not. You can get divorced. Right. Where you live is something you can experiment with. So people get stuck because they hold themselves to decision making in a way that puts pressure on you. If I want to live, let's say, and I don't know why I would, but let's say I wanted to live in Delhi or Bangalore. What most people do, they agonize over what if it's a wrong decision. पूरा शहर भाई एक महीने जाके रह लो. I'm saying you can do that, right? There is always a third way, which creates a temporary situation for you to experience what the permanent situation would be like.
I think the problem, Anupam, is that we have a hero's journey embedded in a collective society. So हम अपने decision लेते हैं, मैं जा रहा हूँ मुंबई रहूँगा. अच्छा मुंबई रहेगा.
But that's bravado. That's
No,
not
but
good
the problem is then people get invested. Then the acceptance of failure to act or failure आपने सोचा कुछ नहीं हो पाया. It's the shame in the investing of others in your lives that causes you to do stupid things again and again and again.
मैं आपको एक बहुत अच्छा सा ब्रेकडाउन देता हूँ डिसीजन मेकिंग का. Okay? All decision making comes from 4 places only. Emotion, ego, conditioning, and intellect. Emotion, decision. आज मेरे को काम पे नहीं जाना है बिकॉज आई वॉन्ट टू, मेरी बेटी की छुट्टी है and I want to spend time with her. There is no rationality in that decision. It is pure emotion. Conditioning. बड़ों के पैर छूना चाहिए. There is nothing else in that decision except conditioning. Right? Ego. उसने ये गाड़ी खरीदी है तो मेरे को ये, उसने 3 सीरीज लिए मेरे नेबर ने तो मैं 5 सीरीज लूँगा. Ego. Intellect is any rational decision you make after weighing the pros and cons. Right? कि हमारे पास ये कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है ये बिजनेस शुरू करने के लिए, and it's too competitive a field, therefore I should not be in this business.
Sure.
That is not to say that decisions should always be made by intellect only. By being aware of where your decision comes from these four places, most of the pain in decision making is gone. Let's take that same situation of I'm staying home because my daughter is got a day off. A lot of people will struggle while they'll stay at home. They will struggle कि यार काम पे आता ये हो जाता वो क्यों नहीं हो रही थी. If they go to work, oh, I should have stayed at home. But if you own it, this is an emotional decision I'm making for my daughter, the agony is gone.
Right.
If you own the decision that I'm buying a 5 Series to look better than my neighbor, why not? पैसे कमाए हैं, किस लिए कमाए?
It's to not decide headlessly without without knowing कि source कहाँ से आ रहा है.
Make it ना with ego. तो ego is important in life यार. ego के बिना तो क्या है, कुछ नहीं है. ego होती है, ego चीज़ है यार, उसको respect करो. But problem is वो बंदा agonize करेगा. नहीं, but what does that say about me? उसने 3 इसीलिए मेरे को ये, कोई उसके घर पे बोलेगा तो उसने 3 ली इसलिए इधर को लेनी है 5, और वो स्ट्रगल करेगा इंस्टेड ऑफ सेइंग हाँ इसलिए लेनी. राइट. सो आई थिंक दैट्स मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट. राइट. कंडीशनिंग मतलब a lot of kids will struggle, क्यों छूने चाहिए पाँव, क्यों, कुछ कॉस्ट नहीं है तुम्हारा उसमें, कंडीशनिंग है, लोग खुश हो जाते हैं, कर लो, और कुछ नहीं है उसमें. So I think once you're aware, that's half the battle. Of course, we can go on and on about decision making. It's a great subject, and
No,
something.
It is. Sorry, you were saying.
No, yeah, it's something I've spent a lot of time thinking about. So,
I only ask completely from a very selfish standpoint because I have you in front of me. Where, as you go on in life, you have to make certain decisions. Like one is often asking you at the start of your 30s, late 20s. क्या करा आपने पिछले कुछ साल, क्या करने जा रहे हो, अपनी ज़िंदगी का हिसाब दो. समाज पूछता है, माँ बाप पूछते हैं, आसपास के लोग पूछते हैं. उस टाइम पे इंसान सोचता है मैं कहीं अकेले जाके सोचूं मुझे क्या करना है. Right? This you have this, and the other is that you don't have any time to think. You can just act. Have there been times in your life where you're at junctures where everything could be lost, or it's pivotal? It's those major decisions, and you felt like your hand was being forced, and then you were able to figure out a solution. What I'm basically trying to ask is how much is the value of pressure plus isolation to get a perfect decision?
perfect decision जैसी चीज़ तो है ही नहीं. तो first of all, I don't think you should look out for perfect decisions. There's no such thing, because any decision that you make, what you are doing is not making some other decisions that you could have.
Yeah.
So had you made those other decisions, things might have turned out a certain way, but you don't know that because you made this decision. So therefore you can never know it's perfect because you've given up something to make it, but you don't know what you've given up. Right? So there is no perfect decision. The only perfect decision is the one that you're comfortable with. Right? Those are the decisions which I just spoke about, which take away the agony of making a decision. That doesn't mean that you just start randomly making decisions. That's not what I'm prescribing at all. But what I am prescribing is to become more self-aware and start to understand yourself and where your decision making is coming from.
So do you have a process? Do you write it down? Do you think while looking outside your 78th floor apartment, wherever that is, कि ऐसे करना है?
Good question. So, when I have, where does the pain come from? The pain of decision making only comes from your sense of self, because you are attached so much to the outcome that you want to get it right. And that's where the pain comes from. अगर आपका दोस्त आपको आके पूछता है वही decision के लिए, you know the answer right away.
Yeah.
Because you're not attached to the outcome. Right? So I think that's where the pain comes from. But what was your question? You had a different.
My question was, how do you take decisions? Is there a place you go to
Huh.
in your mind,
So-
a physical place?
So correct. So sometimes, so the point I was trying to make is the framework that I gave you. In most times, I can just churn it in my head. I don't really need to, it's become instinctive.
Even if you're in a busy work day, you can
Yeah, it's become,
run it in your head.
my decision making is very instinctive. This was one way. The other way is about abstracting things, right? Like if you give me a problem about building, the color of a button on the app, I will not be caught in what looks good there. I will abstract it to, oh, okay, what are we trying to achieve? What are our brand colors? So I'll abstract it to 3 levels away and then the decision will present itself. So all that is instinctive, automatic. It happens because of years of training and experience. But sometimes decisions are so emotional because you have so much vested. Right? For example, आपने 20 साल काम किया है, अभी आपकी कंपनी बन रही है अच्छी खासी. Somebody makes you a very nice offer to sell it. That's a tough decision. So when I'm faced with decisions that are that heavy, then I take paper to pen. So I have an Excel workbook where I gave you 1 or 2 frameworks. I look at them, I put down the data in that, and I try to arrive at a decision when it gets very heavy.
That's great.
So that's usually once in 6 months.
I found that sometimes young entrepreneurs can get caught up in the operations of things. अगर आप व्यस्त हैं तो काम चल रहा है आपका, right? And it's a very attractive thing. मेरे parents call करते हैं कि बहुत काम चल रहा है, वक्त टाइम ही नहीं है, चले जा रहा है. बोलते हेल्थ पे भी फोकस करो, ये भी करो. And then I realized, no, it's a lack of vision. It's a lack of vision that causes excess operations. How are you able to?
Great insight, by the way.
Thank you. I'm yet to implement it, but how are you able to then do both? Because you need both, right? You can't be this like excessive visionary जो बिल्कुल ही मतलब कोई और बन गया है, is not tied to the ground. But you also need to move the levers of your company.
Yeah, look, the best people, the best founders, the best CEOs had the uncanny ability to simultaneously look at the big picture and the pixel level detail. Right? It takes a lot of time to develop that, but you can. Right? I can live at a 30,000 foot and at the ground level at the same time without too much conflict in my mind. Right? And that's comes with practice, experience, skill, instinct, and so on and so forth. So you don't necessarily get stuck in either the big picture or the operations because you're able to see both simultaneously. Right? But that takes time. That takes a certain type of ability. Lateral thinkers are very good at this. That comes to me innately. Right? So I don't struggle that much with it.
Lateral thinkers are when you have knowledge of different fields, so you can think in a slight tangent about things,
Absolutely.
as opposed to super specialization.
As opposed to deep. So I can extract lessons from another discipline and put it here. Right? So
Isn't that what being an investor is, right?
basically a lot of it is that, right? Or I can relate different phenomena because at the end of the day, every situation is unique in its some way, but it's very similar in some ways than other situations.
You've dealt with a similar monster before.
Right? In some ways, most situations are similar. What do you have to gain? What do you have to lose? What is the level, what is the 30,000 view, what is the level 3 view, what are the second order effects, what are the third order effects. So this applies to any complex system.
I've been looking at some graphs of young people, right, where emotional quotient पे लोग कहाँ पे हैं.
But just one second, let me just
Yeah.
complete that. However, for young founders, the answer I gave you is a cop out. It comes from experience, instinct, blah, blah, blah. Let me give you a way to develop it further. For young founders, young starting teams, co founders, I always tell them this. Your operations are going to be more important, but the direction that you go out in is going to be even more important. Right? Velocity is speed into direction. Right? Running in the same place is not progress, which is what you were talking about. Operations कर रहे हैं, मैं एक ही जगह भागते रह रहे हैं, बोलते क्या कर रहे हैं, भाग रहा हूँ, लेकिन कहीं पहुँच नहीं रहा हूँ.
Sure.
And so I always suggest कि आप करो operations, लेकिन हर Saturday को you all will get together for half to full day and only talk about market strategy, competitors, and strategic direction. Put a bowl in the middle. The first guy who talks ops has to put 1,000 rupees in that bowl. And that in time will train you to think big picture and detail at the same time.
Wonderful. I've been looking at some graphs of young people. Extroversion is down. Neuroticism is up. Disagreeableness is up. So you've got
What is up? Disagreement?
disagreeability.
And what
जैसे
else?
मैं और आप बैठे हैं, भाई साहब आओ बैठ जाओ, चाय लोगे, हाँ जी ले लेंगे, आप भी उस that conditioning का आप आदर करेंगे, right? तो we can get along. मतलब you're not gonna say मेरी ये preferences हैं ऐसे.
Right.
No, of course you're a much more respected man than I, right? You've accomplished more than I. I will honor that. ये होता है मैं प्यार मोहब्बत से आपके रह लूँगा. So disagreeability is like मेरी preferences ये हैं और adamant खड़े हो जाना ऐसे. But these graphs are like across the world right now. Among all of this, I noticed that it's caused people to stay indoors a lot, right? And build stuff that generally happens on computers. And when I was doing this trip that I was mentioning, this Rajasthan trip, right? I noticed that courage was in short supply. Courage एक rusty value थी, जो कभी हम साहस सुनते थे किताबों में, छोटा मोटा साहस कर लेते हैं बिजनेस में, यहाँ कर लिया, वहाँ कर लिया. ऐसा.
राणा प्रताप में साहस था, वो टाइप का साहस.
Yeah, like sahas, right? Like sahas is a value. I feel like that value, and I'm not surrounded by as many people who are in startups and businesses, is in short supply now, right? When you were younger, you could do a lot of things because you didn't have enough information. You would just risk it.
Correct.
Take the plunge, take the hit, learn later. Now there is too much information and too little courage. And we need courageous people in every field to build in the new set of innovations, right? To build a new playbook. How can younger people develop courage?
काफी deep question है. To me, it's always come naturally. तो मैंने इसके बारे में इतना सोचा नहीं. But I will answer your question. But people often ask me कि आपको डर नहीं लगा जब आपने ये शुरू किया या ये किया. मेरा एक ही जवाब होता है यार, जब खोने के लिए कुछ था ही नहीं तो डरेंगे किस चीज़ का. डर तो तब लगता है when you have something to lose.
Sure.
When you have nothing to lose, what is there to fear? Right? Lack of fear, yeah, that's courage. But I think that's my story. But if I had to tell people how to develop courage, the thing that was coming to my mind was, I was going to say, and then I corrected myself because it's not right, but I'll say it anyway. The thing I was going to say is you should learn to accept failure. लेकिन ये बहुत बोगस आंसर है. इनफैक्ट ये फेलियर को जो ग्लैमराइज कर रहे हैं ना हम, रोमांटिसाइज कर रहे हैं. एवरीबडी सारा लिंक्डइन पे जाओ तो सब फेलियर ठोक रहे हैं. A lot of it is hogwash. Failure really hurts, and there is no two ways about it. Especially your initial failures, because your self is tied to that. And especially when you're young, you feel you can achieve anything. You don't even assume you will fail. आप शुरू हो जाते हो और फिर फेल होना वो बहुत दर्दनाक होता है, right? I think failure is tough. But when I look back, what I realize is two things. Successful people, ये ऐड चला था, किसको पूछते हो डर के आगे क्या है? क्या है बताइए?
जीत.
डर के आगे और डर है. तो what I realize is डर के आगे और डर है. Successful people don't become successful because they don't have fear. They become successful despite the fear. And so, the only way to develop courage is to lean into your fears. Smaller fears first and then maybe bigger fears. And the second part of this equation is when you lean into your fears, over time something very special happens. Failure stops affecting you as much. When you failed the 30th time, it's okay. Because if you failed the 30th time, you also succeeded. You've had 2-3 big successes. So you start, it still hurts. It always hurts. डर के आगे हमेशा डर है. But you start to instinctively and intellectually understand that that is the price of success. And so you get more courageous. Right? And you realize, and so you don't, the greatest thing is, you actually don't need many successes. You only need 2 or 3 to make a very meaningful and successful life. You need 2-3 big successes. But those will come with 50, 60, 70 failures possibly, right? And after a certain number, you become a little detached to that failure. And that's sort of the magic zone that will make you more courageous.
And that's how you become a Zen investor.
That's
No, because
yeah,
your
I
risk
lose a
appetite.
lot. I lose a lot of money. A lot of founders, I give them money, and after 2 months, I realized that was the biggest mistake, because I can see it in the team dynamics and where the founders put in. I don't talk to those founders again. I don't even say that क्या कर कुछ करो पैसे. मैं तो फोन भी नहीं उठाता हूँ.
Lose the money and ghost them.
When it's become clear that you're going to lose your money, what am I going to do?
Be angry, lose your mind.
Exactly.
As well.
What's the point, right? And
Sure.
try to recover my money by spending my time, which is more valuable, in a direction that I know is not going to anywhere. No, I'd rather just shut that chapter and move on.
Last time I met you, it was a very rushed time, so I went berserk. This time, I had some time to peer into your mind, and I asked you some very selfish questions and some questions that will be very helpful
But
for
I
those
like
who are
that
watching.
berserk you. I expected that today. I thought you were always off the,
क्या?
hook. And
कैसे circumstances थे वहाँ पे कि उन्होंने मेरे को बोला था कि बहुत टाइम मिलेगा, मुझे 20 मिनट दिए. मैंने कहा यार ये लोग तो सड़े बैठे हैं. चलो इनसे बकचोदी करते हैं. बस I ask you now because I'm actually in the middle of many crossroads. So if you could really use your wisdom for once instead of saying like that. It's all fun and games.
I wish I knew ये podcast के पैसे लेते मैं तुमसे.
No, but I was able to understand.
तुम तो पैसे बनाओगे. YouTube देता है पैसे.
देता है पैसे.
उसका तो शेयर दे दो मेरे को.
आप ले लो, कोई दिक्कत ही नहीं है. आप मेरे को इन्वेस्टर बनना सिखा दो.
Don't. Why do you want to be an investor? Don't be an investor. So, see, unless you've startup investing is very risky, right? It's not a good game to play unless you have an unfair advantage.
Everyone who's the apex predator of a game always says
No,
that.
no. it's not. I'll tell you, right? Unless you have enough, if you've generated wealth and you want to take 10% of that and put it in an alternative asset like startup investing, by all means do that.
Sure.
But if you want to put 50% of your money in startup investing, I would highly caution you against that. Right? Because you have to be willing and able to take big losses. I mean, जब 2-4 करोड़ रुपए तुमने कहीं डाले हैं और वो जीरो हो जाता है ना, बट से बड़ा दर्द होता है बॉस. And at that point, it can't be 50% of what you own.
Sure.
You know, it's maybe, 1% of what I own, but it still fucking stings. So, it's a different game. Don't, different stages, different games.
Noted, sir. Well, when I make my first big ones, I'll maybe come and ask you for advice to where to put it in.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I feel like young people are bad at capital allocation. They're really bad at capital allocation. And they're good at...
actually,
earning
because
money.
they want the reason they are not good at capital allocation is because they want get richer quick money schemes. And that's a horrible way. What young people don't understand, and they should understand it first because they are young and they draw the most benefit of it, is compounding is more powerful than any exotic investment allocation scheme. If you just invest in Indian stock market and keep your money there for 20 years without trying to pick stocks, you will make a lot of money. Any country which is politically stable, has a large market, if you pick up that market and sit on it and keep compounding it, right, you will have immeasurable wealth. If you had $40-50 million to start with and you were only in your late 20s or early 30s, if you compounded that money at 15-20% for 25-30 years or less, maybe 20 years, that's the magic of compounding, you would be a billionaire.
That is insane.
Right.
I think the issue is it sounds all good, but time किसी के पास नहीं होता. Nonetheless, I think people can take some great insights from this. I had a blast once again. Thank you so much. People can watch your new show and what is it called? Do you want to be my partner?
It's called, yeah, do you want a partner? Partner. It's called Partner.
Partner.
Yeah, it's less of my show, but I'm playing myself.
Okay.
I'm in a couple of episodes.
Wonderful.
Should be fun.
And they can obviously watch Shark Tank and hear the tunes and have
Start a new season shooting in October 12th. It should be out by December.
or they can hear you doing your alliterations and your shera shairi.
Or talking to you on this wonderful podcast.
Man, seriously, it was a pleasure.
Great. Good one.
Thank you so much.